That's a huge bitch.
How dare you?
No offense, David Jaffe, but that's bullshit.
Well, welcome, my delightful delinquents, to Saturday Gabbing and Games. Everybody's like, well, hang on, I'm just going to swallow the Tootsie Roll because y'all get mad at me. And I get it. I get it. Nobody likes to eat on stream. Nobody likes to hear that shit. I get it. But listen, let's begin now. Let's pretend the show's beginning right now. Here we go. All right, come on now. Hang on. Where'd it go? And this is how we begin.
No offense, David Jaffe, but that's bullshit.
Yeah, gosh darn tootin' it is. Welcome to Gabbing and Games for Saturday, December. Fuck you. Okay, I'm starting again because I can't cuss in the first minute or I get demonetized. So we're just doing it again. This is like being in a live taping. You'll love it. Trust me. If you're watching it live, you're like, what the fuck? But don't worry about it. When it's edited, it'll be just as confusing. Here we go.
How dare you?
Nope, wrong one.
How dare you?
No offense, David Jaffe, but that's bullshit.
Well, my delightful, delicate, delinquent wallflowers. It is Gabbing and Games for Saturday, September 26th, I believe. I just watched the Auburn game. You know, the only thing that'll break your heart more than an Auburn football game is the girl you had a crush on in junior high. The part of the thing that's weird about that is the girl I had a crush on in junior high was like the flag leader at Auburn forever, and she taught the new flag. The point is, Gabbing and Games is live now. That was a heartbreaking game. It's Auburn, though. What do you want? What do you want? You don't get to actually be disappointed when you watch Auburn play and they lose. That's like, well, yeah, that's what they do. It's like you're upset when, Mario has coins in it or something. It's like, you see what I did? I brought it back to video games. Welcome to the show, folks. I hope your weekend's going well. We have a lot of interesting news to talk about today. Look at the festive background. You gosh darn right. Cosmic Bandito, I was having a little bit of a Tootsie Roll, is what we like to call it. And Necro says, look at you, festive devil. Here's what I'm really excited. I'm excited about a lot of things, playing a lot of games. Going to show you guys some neat stuff. But Friday coming up, I'll be streaming it just for members live, and then I'll be doing an edit because nobody likes to watch people play the Dungeons and the Dragons live for the most part. But I'm so excited. We got the 5th edition. We got one of our members, longtime on and off members, is going to be our DM. And I'm going to be playing, a couple other new members will be playing. Bukaki might be playing. Bukaki, if you're watching, they agreed to move the quest to 6 p.m. So if you're around and you still want to join, hit me up, man. But I'm excited. I'm super fucking excited, man. I'm going to be playing some kind of wizard. Maybe I'm going to be playing a necromancer. I usually just play like a fighter. But not now. I want to totally play somebody different. I want to play. At first, I was like, I want to play somebody different. I'm going to play like an orc or a dwarf. It's like, yeah, Jeffy, what's new? I mean, different than I usually play like a barbarian or something. I want to play like a spellcaster. And I want to be able to, possess animals and shit. I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm digging the D&D the older I get. Anyway, that's coming up. All right. Today we got some news, though, but I do want to tell you about something here on the channel. Carlos, it's just simply not true. Jaffe's still salty about the Astro Bot. Let me tell you something. I did get some news that we'll be talking about very soon from what is becoming one of my favorite news sources on the internet, which most people don't know about, but I'll share it with you when we get there. But he revealed why Sweet Tooth is not in Astro Bot. And it's not what we were led to believe. A lot of us were led to believe that it was because, he'll be DLC. We've seen concept art. Turns out that's not the case. That's not what actually happened. So we will be getting into that in just a little bit. But I do want to let you know, on this very channel, if you're a member, and in about a week or two, maybe I'll drop it free for everybody. I don't know yet, but I'm doing this new show over here called There, you can see it. Brain on Games. Should be an S there. And the first episode's up on the Patreon, and it's also up here on the YouTube for members. And what it is, while we tend to do, hang on, let me pause it here. We tend to do more shows here on Gabbin' Games that are more about the news and, lighter and, everybody's debating, discussing. This is kind of more of a deep dive sense of why games work, what causes people to think about them the way they do when they're playing them. On this particular episode, we focus on, but they've done enough of it, so it's not totally. We focus on why, at least I quit games, and what happens in my brain and people's brains when they say, "Okay, I've had enough of playing this fucking video game." So, and this is a game called Anomalous, which we cover, and we talk about why, even though it's great, it's only $8. I walked away from it after about an hour. We get into the deep mechanics of that and sort of what's happening psychologically when somebody might quit a game. So this is happening right now on the channel if you're interested. One of the perks of being a member, along with free chat that you're doing right now and game streams and all that good stuff. So if you're interested, head on over to Patreon or consider a membership here, and you can get in on the action as well. But that's happening right now. Also, this game is out right now. It's not getting a lot of buzz, and that's a goddamn tragedy. This is a game called... why is this... Why, hang on. That's unacceptable. I got to make the screen bigger. Why is that doing that? Hang on. This is a game called Iron Meat, believe it or not. And this just came out and, I know why it's doing that. This just came out and it is absolutely excellent. It is a Contra style game. Better than Konami's very own Contra that they put out this year called Beluga Book. I don't know what the fuck it was called. It was fine. But this is absolutely excellent. This is, I'm actually playing it all on normal mode, which will tell you something because usually I go to easy these days. But it is, what I tweeted is it's like an 80s kid's fever dream. There's tons of 80s references, tons of synth, a lot of characters you can unlock that are clearly, it's almost like that, what was that game? That was like the pixel game where you were kind of doing all the 80s movies, PS4 generation. I forget what they called it. But this references all kinds of 80s shit. The monster design is excellent. It is crisp. It is clean. It controls like beautiful butter. Like I said, you play this, you compare it to Konami's very own Castlevania that came out this year. You're like, what were they thinking? But this is absolutely excellent. This is called I think it's called Iron Meat. And boy, I mean, if you're into these kind of games, and at least so far, I'm more than halfway through it, it is not blisteringly hard. I'm sure that you can make it really hard if you up the difficulty, but I'm playing on default, and it seems very fair. And yeah, like Awesome has played it. He says 10 out of 10. He says it's the Contra we want. I mean, it's not untrue. It's clearly made by somebody who loves the Contra, and actually made it better than Konami beating them at their own game. So I recommend it. This is out now. Give it a... it's like, I don't know how much it is. I got a code from Awesome from the developer, but my guess is it's about $12. I was thinking about that too. It's almost like people who give you recommends or reviews, professional reviewers and stuff, don't you think they should have to pay for the game? I mean, I'm not like planting a flag or anything, but when you think about it, it's real easy to recommend something if you haven't paid for it, right? I do think I would be comfortable paying for this if it was under $20, and my guess is it is. There's no way they're going to charge more than $20 for this thing. But in fact, let's go to the store page and see what they charge. My guess is it's $20. And it's $20 well spent if you like this kind of thing. It's sitting at a very positive review. Yeah, that's the real tricky part with Steam. Once you buy it, you can't figure out, oh, there you go. Yeah, it'll cost you $17 right now. $17 right now. Brett Moore says that's why I never finish Game Pass games. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it is when something's free, it totally changes your relationship with it. And in that, you know, it affects how the game plays and how long you stick with it and all that good stuff. So, okay. Well, anyway, I wanted to let you guys know about that because seriously, I mean, you know, I don't know what it will take. PK says that's too much for that kind of game. Broforce is what it was called. Goddamn right. You know, it's interesting. I mean, you're not wrong and you're wrong when you say that's too much for this kind of game, for this cost of a game. I mean, sure. I mean, game pricing right now, PK99, is so messed up. Game pricing right now in what we value and what I don't know anymore really what is a right price for a game like this, right? I mean, it's really good. It's really fun. I certainly, you know, back in the SNES days, and I know it's not the SNES days, would have paid $60 for this and been happy as a goddamn clam. But what do you think? I mean, is the more correct price $8? But then you have to question, because let me show you something else. It's kind of all related. Good Old Games right now is having a crackerjack of a sale. If you play on PC, look what I just picked up today. All of this for $13. I got Silent Hill 4 The Room, which I've been wanting to play. That's a decent discount. It's only $3 off. XCOM 2, which I've owned for a while, but I've never owned it on PC. So I finally said, fuck it, I'm buying it on PC because I want to play keyboard and mouse. That went from $60 and it's on sale for $3. Silver Chains, which is a decent, well-reviewed horror game, is $25 on Steam. I got it for $1.24. And In Sound Mind, which is a similar like 75 Metacritic rated horror game, $40 on Steam. I got it for $1.99. So again, you're not wrong. You know, like we've been conditioned to not necessarily really understand what games should cost anymore. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad or a good thing, but yeah, when I'm telling you, Awesome Tatum is telling you, the reviews on Steam are telling you this is really, really, really fun. But PK, you look at it and you say, yeah, that's not worth $20. I mean, you may be right, but I don't know what I would do if I was one of these one-man bands. Maybe the one-man band guy is like, well, look, you know, if you really like the genre, that's what the first month is for. You're going to buy it if it's good. It is good. I'm going to get as many $20 sales as I can. And then, you know, we'll Ubisoft it second, third month, and we'll drop it to $9. This is probably a sweet spot at $9 to really maybe make some noise. But I hope actual critics and actual influencers out there play this and see this and go, you know what, I need to let people know about this, because for all the bitching and complaining about, you know, what about the games we grew up with? Games were so much better than, you know. This is a game that delivers on that. It is really well made. It is tight, and it is really creative in the level designs, the monster designs, and it would be a real shame. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a game that deserved to sell really well didn't. But boy, it would be nice if this actually delivered when it comes to the guy who made it, or I think it's a guy who actually put his time into this thing. I mean, look at this fucking, you're fighting the gist of it is there's a base on the moon, some alien does some such weird shit, I don't fucking know, and then all these metal things on Earth get fucked up with biological aliens. So the trains, the helicopters, the subways, all of them are kind of filled with veins and sinew and blood and guts, but it's still the kind of metal. Like here's a tank that has like a giant brain that's controlling it. There's a car with teeth. It's crazy. And it's delightful. It's delightful. Look at that. Come on now. Look at him shooting the brains everywhere. I got to tell you something. We're going to get to the news in 1 second. We're going to start talking about Silent Hill in just a moment. Not the one I just picked up, the Room, but the new one coming out in a couple of weeks. Listen, though, first. I had this dream last night. Oh, my God, you guys. I had this dream last night. And, again, I don't have nightmares anymore. Like, when I was a kid, what I'm about to tell you briefly would have, I'm not going to go into the details, but it would have been a nightmare. But, like, there was murder, and me and my kid watched Scream, the one with Jenna Ortega last night, so maybe it was all in my mind and shit, but there was, like, slicing of stomachs, and there was this woman lying on this hotel bed, and every time I passed, I glanced into the window, and, like, more and more of her flesh had been removed, and so you could just see more and more bone, like, sticking out of her hip and shit. It was dark, and I remember in the dream kind of going... Like it was a little lucid towards the end, and I said, "Oh, hello, subconscious," or something like that. I'm like, I know that you think this is scaring me, but it's cool. I appreciate it, but this doesn't scare me. And so it formed this. My subconscious manifested as this creature that took on the form of something that kind of looked like in Elden Ring, those weird fucking crow giant birds that. They're just, 15 feet tall, and they're just scary as fuck. And they just come at you with their big fucking mouths and shit. Turned into something like that. And it came at me and it killed me. And I was just in darkness. And I said, this isn't scary. I said that I appreciate it. And so it brought me back. And it was like, well, I don't know what to do. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, we're perfect. I said, you exist in my subconscious. So you're giving me all that shit. And I can work with it consciously. This is the best. We're buddies. And then I woke up. Isn't that weird? Vitaphone says, to be fucking honest, or to be fair, I don't know what TBF means. People value games much less since Game Pass, and they seem to sell less, so $20 may be the new $15. Yeah, could be. Absolutely. I don't know. As to this game on screen, Iron Meat, Vitaphone says 10 to 15 seems like sweet spot. When retro side scrollers first started blowing up, it seemed to be viable. But yeah, so, we'll see how it does. We'll see how it sells, if it sells at all. Have I thought about making a dream journal? No. I mean, I don't wake up going, what did it mean? Dreams I can figure out pretty easily now. My take on dreams is based on a life coach named Martha Beck. And I don't know where she got it from, but she says basically the best way to interpret dreams is to go, look, everything in the dream is you. Which makes sense. Everything in the dream is you. So anything that you're seeing, anything you're experiencing, the good, the bad, the otherwise, it's all a part of who you are. And I think that makes perfect sense, because when I basically deconstruct all my dreams and I think of it through that, like, what is this part about me? What is this part about me? I'm like, oh yeah, I get what it's trying to tell me, if anything. Listen to this though. Speaking of horror and dreams and all kinds of good stuff, I want to talk about Silent Hill. Because here's what's going on, and I want to get your thoughts on this, and I want to see what the world thinks on this. So Silent Hill, basically this week. Next week. Let me check. No, it's this week. It's coming out this coming week, not this week, but October 4th is when the embargo lifts. Friday, so a week from yesterday, the embargo will lift, and it will be out. For most people on the 8th. If you got early access, it'll be out the next day, October 5th. Okay. So the interesting thing about this is a couple of things. And one is that it relates to Sony, because we know it's console exclusive. On one hand, the surface of this reads like it is going to be they're confident, right? It's like, well, we're putting out the game. We're letting people review it. They already have the code, but we're letting people talk about it 4 days before the game goes on sale. And I guess with this, they can't really risk the suspicion that would probably arise if they said, no, we're going to embargo it until the day of, because they know people are rightly so skeptical of Bloober Team's ability to pull this off, even though the recent stuff does look better and better. And so I think even if the game comes out and most, the safe bet, even though I hope this isn't the case, the safe bet is this is going to live at 74, 75 on Metacritic. And that's not great, but for horror, it's pretty good. And frankly, I think that's going to be better than risking the suspicion, especially maybe even harming the early access. Because I'm going to wait for the reviews on that Friday before I pre-order it to play it next weekend on the 5th. Spazbo in the chat says, I'll be playing it with early access on Steam. You mean because you pre-ordered it, right? Yeah. So if you order it, I don't know when they're going to close their pre-orders. Maybe they'll be going up till the minute it releases. But if you pre-order it, which is $10 more, you'll be able to get the early access on the 5th of October. Brett Moore says, I hope Silent Hill 2 scares the pants off me like the original. My guess is it won't, because the biggest criticism I think that's going to come the way of this game is what we've already seen from previews, which is it seems to be good. It seems to be solid. It looks great, but they didn't really do much to subvert expectations. And if you don't subvert expectations in horror, it becomes really hard to do and to scare anybody. So, somebody I don't get scared in video games for the most part, but somebody like me who never played Silent Hill 2, maybe I'll actually benefit from being scared because it's mostly new to me. But that's probably going to be one of the biggest complaints about this, is that they were too reverent of the subject matter. But we'll see. We'll see. But I will be waiting for that review before I buy the early access for sure. Film Gamer says, I got digital deluxe, and a physical copy to keep sealed. Why? Because you want to sell it, I guess. I can see that. But why else would you want a physical copy and a digital copy? But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if there is a reason, if they are as confident in this game. If they're like, no, we'll review it. Let people fucking talk about it. Review it. Because a game we're going to talk about in a second is not doing that, and it comes out next week as well. But here's what's weird about Sony with this. This is a Sony console exclusive. I see. Spazbo says he's getting a physical copy too for when Konami decides to remove it from digital stores. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Although we're going to talk about that too, but in a minute though. But anyway, so this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I want to make sure I get the date right, but I'm almost certain I have the date right. Don't let me steer you wrong on this. But I am almost certain. Hang on. Yeah. So this game comes out. Yeah, this is kind of ridiculous to me. This is kind of the horror version of when Sony was releasing Jak and Daxter, Ratchet, and Sly Cooper all in the same quarter. Okay. So October 4th, and maybe this is why Konami's doing it. Maybe this is why they're saying that's when you lift the embargo. Because you know what comes out the day the embargo lifts is the Until Dawn remake, right? So Sony's putting out a console exclusive in Silent Hill, and on the same week they're putting out Until Dawn, their first party remake, right? And Konami says, okay, well, we want to make sure if players are kind of debating, because you're going for the exact same audience, which one of these we buy, we want to make sure we think the reviews will be better or good enough to make people go, fuck it, we'll go with Silent Hill, which I could see. And so what I don't get, though, unless Sony knows they have a stinker, I have no idea. But why are they releasing... I get it's Halloween, but you'd think they'd give their console exclusive Silent Hill a couple of weeks to breathe and then put out Until Dawn remaster like 2 weeks before Halloween. At least you can kind of give them a 2-week window. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they're doing that. I don't know if you guys have any theories as to why that's happening and why they're not pushing it. But isn't that bizarre? Isn't that a strange, dumb thing to do? And again, maybe this is like, look, man, as great as a lot of people, know Sony is, maybe their third party and first party people just don't, I don't know, maybe they don't talk enough or something. Maybe it's like, dude, are you aware that we're putting out pretty much a game that's aimed at the exact same people in the exact same week? Only playable on this console or PC? PK says they probably don't want to release near Call of Duty. Yeah, but Call of Duty is November. You could still get 2 weeks of the Halloween rush. And listen, Halloween is one thing, but November actually is a good time to release if you're a game that we'll be talking about in a minute, which is Slitterhead, because they're coming out November, I think, 8th, and there's a bunch of new stuff that just dropped on that I want to talk about in a second. But those guys, really, there's nothing. Maybe you could argue Dragon Age that comes out on the 31st might be a similar audience for Slitterhead. I don't think so, though. I'm not saying people won't play both, but I'm saying that the hardcore RPG guys are probably not the same as the hardcore horror guys. They're going to try Slitterhead before anybody else does. Call of Duty's October. I don't think you could be right. Let me check. Let me check. I could have sworn Call of Duty was coming out in November, but you might be right. Call of Duty 6 release, not 6, but Blob 6. No, you're absolutely right. It's October 25th. Okay. King Kong. So then the question becomes, well, when the fuck do you put it out? At least give them a week. If you put this game out on the 8th, what's that? 14 days? Okay, so at least put it out 10 days. Give them 10 days. No, they did not delay Silent Hill, and they didn't delay Until Dawn. I'm saying they're coming out in the same goddamn week. Movie Maniac says there's room for both because Until Dawn is like a choose your own adventure movie. I get it. I mean, I get they're totally different games, but they drink very much from a very passionate well, and I don't know if they're going to have enough audience to support both, but we'll see. Okay. Post Trauma, says Necros, another good-looking horror game, October 29th. Never heard of that game. I don't think so. Releasing horror late in October is kind of goofy. I never really understood it because it's like at that point you get a couple of days, people are excited, and then after that, they've moved on unless they're just hardcore horror fans. Okay, so Post Trauma this does look pretty good. Post Trauma looks like a Silent Hill inspired game. While we're talking, I'll put the trailer up for you guys so we can talk. Here you go. This is Post Trauma, which comes out. Yeah, it comes out in a couple weeks. Hang on. I'll turn it down if I can. That's kind of neat looking. It's kind of raw. Oh, it's Raw Fury. They're doing some good stuff too. So anyway, Spaz says, as much as I like the original Until Dawn, I don't see a reason for this new version being worth $60. I agree. And I think the other thing about Until Dawn is Until Dawn came out at a time when somebody needed to pick up the mantle or the baton from Telltale. But since then, what is it, Supermassive with all their Dark Pictures anthology, and then the casting of Frank Stone, and there's so many games like that now that I am curious if anyone's going to show up for this, which is basically a remake from 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, Horizon. That's a good question, Brett Moore. Horizon Dawn is a $10 upgrade. Why isn't Until Dawn? I don't know. I do not know. It's a great question. I don't know. I wish it was, but I'll wait for the reviews on both of them. Listen to this though. Speaking about, hello Cluebell, we were just talking about, it's weird that Sony has an exclusive for Silent Hill 2, and they're putting it out basically the exact same week as Until Dawn Remake. Does the $10 Horizon upgrade apply to Steam, says Z-Trigger? Oh, it's a good question. My guess is no, but I don't know. But yeah, that Post-Trauma game looks pretty good. There's a bunch of great horror coming out in the indie space. I'm very, very happy. Listen to this, though. Here's something that, what do you think of this? I mean, you can't help but be concerned. Now, I'm a big Starfield fan. You guys, watch the stream know I love the Starfield. I bought the deluxe edition, or I paid a little extra on Game Pass, but for most people, it'll cost you $27. It comes out next week as well. In fact, it comes out, I think, Monday, California time, 9 a.m., is you can get the DLC for Starfield. Supposed to be all kind of horror-based. It's all set on one planet. There's no real spacefaring adventure stuff. It's a little bit more grounded. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it looks amazing, but it looks good. It looks like Starfield. So if you like Starfield, you'll be in business. But they're not releasing any review codes. There are no early review codes. Now, sometimes that's bugs. Sometimes it's like, oh, we just want to fix the bug. Nah, but even then, even then, unless they've got some massive fucking crash in the first 5 seconds they haven't fixed yet, even then, you send out a letter or an email or a pack to the reviewers and say, here's the 30 things we know are wrong that are going to be fixed day one patch. And you're off the hook usually, assuming you get it fixed. Even then you're still off the hook sometimes, depending on the reviewer. But in this case, they're not even doing that. And so obviously it sends a really bad message. The assumption is that once again, Microsoft first party, can't find a light switch. What? That's not any good. The assumption is Microsoft first party continues to shit the bed. How about that one, folks? We know what that means. And I'm not saying they will. I loved Starfield. I'm not a hater at all on that game. I love that game. But my goodness, what are you doing? So anyway, that's unless there's some other kind of theory that I haven't thought of why they would, spoilers maybe, but reviewers don't do spoilers. If you send it out to like the 10 main, outlets, they're not, Kotaku's not going to spoil it. IGN's not going to spoil it. They'll play ball, right? So I don't know what this is. It's very strange, other than it may just not be very good, but that's hard to believe. You're building off a game that all the updates they've made recently are good. You're building off a game that, a lot of people did enjoy. So you've got a foundation to build something cool. Why would you not let people play it? I don't know. Can't come up with any other reason. I will say this, though, because I've been playing a lot of Star Wars and a lot of other games recently. I haven't gone back to Starfield. I went back in to try the Dune Buggy out, which was fun. But I really wish games would come with playable recaps. I know that, it's like, oh, maybe there's a little video or something and there's YouTube. But and again, you can't mandate this, but I would love to see games like this just build in time to be like, okay, here's a 5-minute playable section. It'll get you used to the controls again. It'll get you back on the story. Because I remember I was reading one of the designers of the DLC for Starfield was talking about the, I forget what they even call you when you evolve, one of those guys. When you evolve, you get these powers. And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot I had powers in this game. And I don't even remember how to do them. Right. And so I would love that. I would love to be able to have, I wanted to do that honestly with, God of War 3. I was only designing it for like a week and then I left and Stig, I think Corey took it and then Stig, I don't know how, I forgot I'd left, but it was that. It was all playable recap of the first couple of games in case you'd never played them because it was coming out on PS3 and, maybe you didn't play it on PS2. So Sony does have some interesting patents about this. They seem to care about this as a problem in terms of recaps and stuff. I don't know if you remember this. We talked about this a while ago. PlayStation has patents. This is one that says the PlayStation Patent Company has filed several patents over the years detailing interesting features like the ability to replay particular story missions through trigger points. Another Sony patent mentions game difficulty. We've talked about this a lot, that automatically adjust to player skill so they don't have to jump back into a game and they're learning the controls and they left during a boss fight and it was a month ago. Like if you threw me back in right now to Lies of P, which I never finished, but I really liked, and it was probably where I left it, I would be like, oh, fuck this game. I want you to think about that. We opened up this show talking about the value of games and people not really knowing, well, certainly not me. Vitaphone seemed to have a theory, but not knowing what a game should cost anymore because there's so many that are free and on discount and blah, 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 and discount quick that you have so many options now. You throw somebody back into a game that they had to walk away from a month ago because they got busy in their real life. And in the first 10 minutes, they're like, what the fuck is going on? I imagine you would want to do as a developer everything you can to make sure they don't go away. Because it's like you finally got them back. Don't breathe on it wrong. Do everything we can to make the return process really welcoming. So I get it. I absolutely get it. Brett Moore says this happens a lot to me. I get it. Here's another one, though. Listen to this. They're also doing a patent. It doesn't mean these will be in games, but they're thinking about it, which is great. This includes a patent for making complicated in-game systems like inventory management easier for inexperienced players with the help of an AI coach. And if you've watched a video on this channel, which was me playing 7 Days to Die using ChatGPT as an AI, and I told the AI, I said, hey, I want you to pretend you're a survivor in the wasteland with me. So he was role playing as that, and he was able to answer questions like, hey, what does this skull mean when it's up on the heads up display compass and all this shit. It was great. So I'm glad to see they're doing that. But here's a new one. That we saw. It's a system for to help forgetting or easily distracted players like me keep track of things that happen in their favorite narrative-based PlayStation games. The system would make a note of key story events and notifications, and then relay the information back to the player in the form of an in case you missed it window. As noted by the patent, here's me, they're speaking to my soul. This could be especially helpful to gamers with ADHD or poor memories who might struggle to keep track of everything that takes place in a given title's campaign. Let me explain something to you briefly. I remember when we were designing the first God of War, and I was playing Castlevania. It may have been Harmony of Dissonant. It was one of those DS Castlevanias. And I remember going, I can't follow this fucking story because there's a lot going on in this fucking story. And so I remember going, we need to make our story good, but it's got to be simple because you can't plot a game story like a movie because most people they watch a movie in one sitting. You got to figure out a way to either, embed the previously on idea into the actual narrative so it doesn't feel like a previously on. Comic books have been doing that for decades. Or you just have to make the story simple enough that it's pretty easy to lodge into your brain pan and not go anywhere in the week or month or 2 months it takes you to fucking finish a video game. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. And I will say with Starfield, I don't know if they're going to address it, but I hope they do because I want to fall in love with Starfield DLC immediately when I start playing it, which probably won't be next. Well, I don't know. Probably will be Monday. I'll probably fuck around with it on Monday. But I don't remember any of my powers. I don't remember any of the controls. I don't even remember where I was when I left off. Necro says this would be a great feature for me. There's times when I'll be weeks or months before I can get back to a game due to a busy schedule. Absolutely. 100%. David Seeger says, what's up, Jaffe? I think you're coming all the way in from Mariel, England. Is that correct? I know you don't get to chat a lot. I appreciate you being here, buddy. We're just, talking games. We're talking a little bit about the Starfield DLC, Silent Hill 2. Some patents Sony has just launched, or they announced these a couple months back, but they've been talking about to make it easier for people to get back into video games and things like that. Bulbo says, Jaffe, no notification that you went live. Here's what I can tell you about that. The only thing I can promise you is YouTube always tells people like me, because people like you complain a lot, and I complain a lot too when it's someone else that I'm subscribed to. They say, you have to turn the bell on. You have to say you want all notifications. And if you're watching on a phone, you have to then go into your phone and turn on notifications for YouTube. So it's a nightmare. But if you want to not miss a show, which I would appreciate. I love it when you guys are here. That's how it's got to be. That's how they do it. Z-Trigger says, Jaffe, imagine an AI that watched you play through a sandbox game and at the end compiles everything from your playthrough into a story that recaps it. I think that would be really, really cool. But what would be even more cool is an AI that watches you play and changes the game in real time. I was playing this game. It's not even a game. It's really quite delightful. I don't think I'm the core audience, but I could see this being huge for people. Tiny Glade, have you seen this? I showed it on the stream once before, but it is it's like Valve's Director, the game that adjusts in real time, but it needs to be a lot more robust. Let me show you guys this. Just I don't mean to go off the beaten path because I know we want to talk news and shit, and I want to talk news with you guys as well. But I want to share this. So if you're listening to the podcast, maybe I'll cut this part out. And I will keep it very short. I'm not going to give you a full-on game demo or anything, but I just want to show you how neat this is because the final version of this has come out, and they actually added a ability to turn on the camera as a POV camera, so you can actually walk through the space. Right? Let me see what's going on here. Let me move it over there. Okay. Hey, Rob the Mod, he says, hey, friends, I'm out right now, but wanted to say hi. Rob, I'm trying to find out if Bukkake is in for the D&D next week. I will let you know as soon as I find out the number of people we're able to fill in there. I'd love to have you. It'd be great. Okay, so this is called Tiny Glade. And what it is, I'm not even going to, it's not, here's the point. All of this stuff, let me turn the volume down. All of this stuff has already been generated. So AI is not creating it at all. But once the game gets rolling, you can imagine it would be very easy for an AI storyteller to come in and start to say, oh, the player wants to go up here and we haven't had anything interesting happen in a while other than the normal grind. Let's put a house up there. And I mean, you literally can go in and move all this around and raise and lower things. You can cut, and there's a logic, you can cut stairs in, and there's a logic to it, which is great, that says things like, if you put certain pieces next to other pieces, like these fences, and you put a fence next to a road, it makes a gate, right? So you have to kind of, you kind of learn its logic. And then imagine a game doing this in real time. And then when the game is ready, or D&D doing this, you can actually go in and you can fucking play it. Now, this isn't a game. It's just a diorama builder. But imagine, I mean, come on, this is where we're headed, folks. I know, I know a lot of people get upset about all this stuff, but I'm dying for a game like this. Are you kidding me? Not this specific game, but a game that writes itself in real time. So this is pretty cool. And then of course you can pet the sheep, why not? And it's just fun too, but I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be great at this game, or this tool, but there's a lot of people who are already building just magnificent, amazing things that if you like this and you like this kind of chill experience. And what I love is the AI that does stuff like I can put a window here. If I put a window next to it, it knows to basically link them and then create like, laundry stretch between two windows, or this will put a little awning. Let's see, like that. And then if you put a door somewhere, it'll go, oh, let's put a little thing next to the door. It's really, really cool. It's very exciting. One guy did this, fellas. I mean, this is kind of where we're going. And you can go into the woods and shit, and come on, man. How exciting is that? I think it's exciting. I don't know. I don't know if it's just me. But I think stuff like this is so cool because it really does show you the future of what this medium is going to be. Okay, let's move forward though with actual news. I don't want to get too delayed there, but I did want to share that because it was related to what we were talking about. Okay, listen to this. Now, here's my question. There's a new law. If you live in California, you may have heard about this already. There's a new video game law in town. Of course, it's California first. Of course, it's brought by a Democrat. It makes me happy. It's rare us consumers get the love in a hardcore capitalist society, so it's nice to see this. There were some people that went to a California senator and said, I'm pissed, man. I'm pissed that Sony is taking all the Discovery Channel content away. That doesn't seem like it should be fair. I'm paying for it, and I bought it, and they took it away. They said, "Oh, well, you just bought the license to it." And so they went to the senator, this Congress lady, and she started putting this bill forward. She sponsored a bill saying you can't do that. And then it got even worse because Sony worked that out, and it didn't happen. But legally, it could have happened. And then then Ubisoft said, hey, you know what? We're going to take away the crew games. So after this date, you can't play them anymore. And people are like, but I bought them. And she's like, all right, enough's enough. And this looks like, I believe it's been passed or it's about to be signed by Gavin Newsom. Let's see if it actually passed. A new law will change how always online games are sold, at least in California. Any retailer that sells an online-only video game will soon need to warn customers, at least in California, that the game they're purchasing may not be theirs to play forever. Now, listen to this, by the way. This is Stephen Totillo, who I had beef with back in the day, but we worked it out. He has a Substack called GameFile. It's great. It's $10 a month. I don't know if you want to spend the ducats, but it's a great purchase. He's always getting some great stories. We're going to talk about Sweet Tooth and Astro Bot. He broke that, so I want to talk about that in just a little bit. But anyway, he says, going back to this bill. It sounds like the bill was signed, so it goes into effect January 1st. The bill makes it illegal for sellers of any digital goods, games, movies, books to use terms like buy or purchase during a transaction. Now, this could change consumer behavior, but give me a minute. Let me tell you how I think it would. Games, movies, books to use terms like buy or purchase during a transaction without the inclusion of a warning about the potential impermanence of what they're paying for, right? So if you buy a digital good and you're buying it in California or you're selling it in California, which would affect Valve. I don't know why they said Valve, but they did say Valve. Certainly would affect Sony. And I think they said Microsoft, but I'll get to that list in a second. But you have to have a warning. The seller also needs to provide, according to the law, purchasers with the conditions of the license and a warning, if applicable, that a loss of rights to aspects of the content, such as the music, could cause the game or other digital aspect to be pulled. Obviously, free-to-play games or games offered for free or on a timed subscription doesn't apply. But it says that Valve, Xbox, and PlayStation would need to be compliant come the 1st of January. A seller, it's pretty steep, $2,500 penalty for each non-compliant listing and sale. And you could also be found in violation of California's unfair competition law. Right now, California is 11% of digital sales, so it's meaningful. But usually when it comes to things like this, cheesy to say, but true, as goes California, as goes America eventually. And who's gonna complain about this except the actual business people? It doesn't affect us in Canada, says Bulbo, which is a good thing because I would lose my mind. Why would you lose your mind? It's not that you and I and people who watch shows like this don't know about this, but imagine, in fact, listen to this. It tells you how hard it is to find this shit right now. Although, by the way, it does say this year's Call of Duty Black Ops 6 requires an online connection at all time, even when you play the story mode. So it would be subject to this law as well. It says currently trying to buy Black Ops 6 through Microsoft's Xbox store includes an option to buy the game with a fine print link to Microsoft's store terms of sale. Those terms are thousands of words long and include the line that appears in plain text visible after scrolling through other terms, which is, quote, software and other digital content may be available to you through the store. It is licensed but not sold to you. The California law states that any such warning has to be made clear and conspicuous, and it goes in explaining what that is. The hope is that the new approach will make things more clear for purchasers of internet-reliant digital content. The law may even bolster consumer demand. This is what I'm hoping for cheaper rental or sub options. These would be welcome alternatives. Because think about that for a minute. That's my question. That's really what it all comes down to, which is a lot of us already know that this is happening, but we just say, fuck it, we're doing it anyway. Okay? In this case, though, if they have to basically make a warning label in essence, like on a pack of cigarettes, which is, hey, you're not really buying this, you're renting it. Do you think it will, it'll protect consumers and but will it make consumers go, you know what? No, fuck you. Like the very nature of having it written there that you're about to drop $70 on Call of Duty Black Ops 6, but you don't really own it. Do you think it's going to make a difference in terms of actually, maybe they'll have to start going, hey, we're going to start taking 50, we're losing sales now because of this law. So now instead of $70, if you buy a digital license, we're going to have to take, it's going to be $50. Or do you think no one's going to change any behavior at all, even if this is really clear? I mean, the fantasy is the former. The fantasy is when it's labeled, hey, you're basically renting this game for as long as they want you to rent it. But the minute they snap their fingers, you got to give it back. If that's clear and present, what do you think? You think that'll change people's views and force these companies to charge a little bit less? Ravno says, honestly, how dumb would you need to be to not comprehend that you cannot reach into your internet cables and pull the game out? You do own the license, meaning if it exists, you have access to it. That's simply not true, and it's not about being dumb. It's about going, if you buy, come on, man. You're just being contrarian. Basically, if you buy Lollipop Chainsaw, for example, there have been a number of games that will no longer run because the licenses to music or image rights to an actor that was in a movie have expired. And why in the world would your average consumer, when they're buying Buffy the Vampire Slayer on Xbox 360, or obviously it wasn't digital then, but let's say it's a digital version of Squid Game, why in the world would the average consumer go, oh, you know, the lady who did the voice for the PA system, yeah, those rights didn't extend, so the whole thing isn't playable anymore. Ravno says, then get a refund. Sure, if they'll let you, but you think Sony's going to go, hey, yeah, this game you bought 4 years ago, we're going to give you a refund for because now you can't play it. Read the fucking 1,000-word terms of service. You signed up for that, bitch. How can you be so anti-consumer, Ravnos? I'm the one that usually gets hit with that. Vitaphone says, I don't think this law goes far enough. It's a good start. Consumers being trained to accept a false sale that is nothing more than a lease at full price comparable to purchase. No, I know, but at least it's a start. I agree. Wait, I could have sworn people who own the game still have access, but new people cannot purchase it. It depends on the game. There are games that have been pulled. This whole thing came about because, and it wasn't games, it was digital television, that people bought shows from Discovery to play on PlayStation Network. And then PlayStation Network sent out an email saying, hey, those licenses have expired. So any Discovery Network shit you have on your hard drive, all of that's getting, like, you can't play it anymore. You won't be able to utilize it anymore. Z-Trigger says, I believe they should be under the obligation to make an offline mode for the game. Well, they are actually. That's what this article talks about. So that's how Ubisoft is getting around it when it comes to the Crew, because that was the second thing. It says, earlier this month, Ubisoft said most recent 2 Crew games, including last year's Motorfest, will receive offline modes in the future. Promises alone aren't enough, though. But in that, it says one way around the law for game sellers would be for games to ship with offline modes. So in that, you would still be able to play it. But if it turns out that they didn't offer an offline mode, then you would have bought it and you can't do anything with it. So, you know, I think it's great. I think it's excellent. And I'm sorry, look, do I think end of the day, buyer beware? Of course. Do I think if you sign a terms of service, you're on the hook? Of course. I'm not suggesting that these companies have been illegally doing this, but I am suggesting these companies have very well-paid lawyers that make it very hard for customers to be given a fair shake. And if the laws are going to exist to protect the companies, to let them do this sort of shit, it's nice when there's some pushback when laws come up like this one, where it's like, hey, okay, well, every now and then the customer gets to win. And so go fuck yourself. Ravno says the law should be this. If you delist and make a game, I think he's saying unplayable, you need to provide a physical copy. Well, you can't do that. The law just says you need to put a disclaimer. You can't do that. What you need to do is, if you do that, if you basically make it unplayable, you have to give them a refund. But you can't basically force them to create physical shit out of thin air that never existed. And these are not toothless warnings at all. Every time somebody buys a game, let's say, I mean, it wouldn't happen with a game this big, but you never know. But let's say a game sells 1 million copies, and those 1 million copies get pulled. Well, that's $2,500 per copy. And then they also can run afoul of other regulations put in place. The law literally says you can get fucked with the fine, and you can also get fucked with a totally different consumer organization, California's unfair competition law. So, you know, I don't think that this is toothless at all. Okay. PR people and lawyers did an amazing job when they convinced Americans to argue against their own rights, says Z-Trigger. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is it's not nuanced, but it's more nuanced than usual for a lot of people when they talk about this stuff because people are fucking busy. Yeah, of course it's the law. Of course you agreed to the terms of service. But again, fuck you. I mean, a lot of things are the law, not because it's good for people. It's because it's good for companies. So I love it. What about physical that requires online connection? You know, I was wondering that. I was curious about physical. It doesn't say anything. This is all digital. And so I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. Ravno says, what sucks is physical discs are so often useless. Many games won't run without patches and downloads. Yeah, I think that is probably a separate but still very, very valid complaint. Yeah, see, I don't know. I hate patches and online needed shit, says Ravnos. All I can tell you is, I mean, there's pros and cons, man. If we could have gone back and patched the first God of War with that Hades level, like people are like, why did you do that? It wasn't intentional. It was way too hard. We didn't know. We didn't catch it. We would have done it. But that was a time where the game shipped and that was the game. Star Wars Outlaws may or may not have another life ahead of it this Christmas because of all the great changes that team is making to the software, which you couldn't have done back in the day. So I don't know. I don't know about the idea that patches and stuff is bad. What I do agree with though is if you buy a physical game and you can't run it unless you have a connection to the internet, that seems, I don't know. I don't know why the law doesn't deal with that unless they're saying, well, you do own the physical thing, but you still need the license. I don't fucking know. I don't know. Maybe they'll get around to that. Maybe they'll get around to a law for that. But right now they don't have it. Right now they don't have it. Johnny says, I lost my entire physical PS3 and 360 collection. Hundreds of games. I love digital. I do too, but I do think we could be better protected. Okay. Robbo says GT7 needs online to play single player, right? But in that case, that's going to have to change then. Because they're going to have to basically, if they're going to sell, think about that. I mean, that's really interesting. They're going to have to basically go back to that game because they're still selling GT7. And they're going to have to either patch it so you don't have to be online to play it, or they're going to have to stop selling it, or they're just going to have to eat whatever financial punishment they get from this law, because that's a great example. Our testers failed you, says Ravnos. We always brought new eyes on product late just to see if the newbies found issues worth balancing. Then, of course, marketing would just say, too bad, we ship next week. I mean, yeah, the testers on that, I don't know, man. I mean, testing it's a different topic, but you're right. I mean, somebody should have caught it, and I sure didn't. It was ultimately my responsibility, but I had no knowledge to know what I was looking for, because I know what we learned was we had play tested the rest of the game like mad people. It was constant. It was obsessive. And so by the end of it, we were like, oh, we got it. We know what's hard. We know what's easy. We know what the numbers are. And, we missed. Okay. Another story, by the way, on this same different issue, but this is another one from Totillo. This is a great write-up, by the way, all about Astro Bot and the creation of the actual Astro Bots and how they decided which characters would get utilized in the game. Hang on. Come on now. I just want to read a couple parts to it. But again, this is over on GameFile. You have to have a subscription, but I recommend it if you like news like this. Again, it's, all this stuff trickles out eventually in other places like this one. So, so they said, here was our process to deciding who got put into Astro Bot. They said, first off, of course, we were obligated to include the blockbuster characters like Kratos and Nathan Drake. They said, and this is directly from Totillo, so some of this I'll just be reading you. Then came the icons who aren't as widely seen today. Parappa the Rapper, Sly Cooper, Jack and Daxter, and others like them. At that point, you have kind of a no-brainer list, they said, and that's already getting to maybe 50 or 60 characters. And if you remember, they have 301. Somebody says 305. I'll never know. There had to be some deep cuts at that point. And so at that point, you're talking to less people, the director said, referring to gamers who would catch the references. But the people you are talking to may just have the fondest memories of those characters. So it became really hard to decide who was going to be in this game. They need to be games that have left people with a positive impression and genuine nostalgia, they said, of all the picks. It says, I was thinking, well, maybe half the ones we're wishing for will make it. In the end, in fact, almost 100% of the companies we reached out to outside of Sony, Konami, Namco, Capcom, more, Metal Gear stuff is in there with Konami, are in because the partners just raised their hands and said, absolutely. Which is interesting. And you guys know I love Big Bad Johnny Garvin. But again, it's just like, that would have been my take. I've talked about this before, but I've always been fascinated when things like what was the Clap Hands golf game that Sony put out and shit? When it was like, hey, can we put Sweet Tooth in the golf game? I'm like, yeah, please. What do you need? PlayStation All Stars. Yeah, what do you need? I was always stunned that some of these developers were like, no, it's, you know, I'm not. It wasn't Nathan Drake, so I'll say Nathan Drake, but I have no recollection of how they dealt with that. But no, Nathan would never play golf. It's like, shut up, idiot. Put him in the game. That's what I think. But anyway, so a lot of people signed up. A lot of people, Hot Shots Golf, right? A lot of people signed up and said, yeah, we're doing that. Okay, that's great. That's great. They did ask them about cloud. And the answer that the director came back to Totillo with was, he's like, can't really comment anymore on that. So clearly he's like, you know, we're so grateful for all of our partners. Very PR sanctioned. So clearly what happened was they wanted him in for whatever reason. Square said, go fuck yourselves. So he's not in there. This is pretty cool though. If you've played the game, what happens is when you collect a mascot Astro Bot, which is one of the ones that looks like a PlayStation character and not just sort of a generic one that looks like a Tesla. What ends up happening is if you put them in they automatically go to kind of the hub world and there's a gotcha machine. And if you find their little prop, they get their prop in the hub world so you can go up to them and punch them and they'll do a little bit, right? They'll do a little bit of a gag or whatever, right? And this is really interesting. I love this part. It's some good behind the scenes stuff. It said, Asobi, the guys who made it, needed to decide on outfits and animation gags for each robot. For Resident Evil, this is great. I didn't notice this. For Resident Evil's Claire Redfield, for example, they positioned her next to a locked door and had her fumble through a set of keys, which I love, but I've gotten her, but I must not have gotten her little gotcha, right? Concepts like that were first sketched out by the lead concept artist, Toshihiko Nakai. He'll draw these little storyboards that are almost like little manga sheet of story, which represents the whole character that we were trying to portray. It will be a beautifully drawn little gag and a little joke based on how we want to bring the franchise into our world and put our little twist on it. Now he has concept art too, which is really cool. For the bots tied to Jak and Daxter, for example, they zeroed in on a beloved animation from the series where Daxter slaps and knocked out Jak back into the action. So if you're listening and not looking, this is the actual concept art that the team, they said they work really fucking fast. So this guy takes about an hour or two to come up with a gimmick. If they like it, they animate it all within a day. There's the concept art right there. It says an hour or two making a sketch. Then they give the sketch to animators who rough it up in an hour. And then they just start plussing it. They spend the rest of the day polishing it. And then it's done. Then it's fucking done. They work really, really quick. They said if people can recognize the character through the body language before we even put franchise props and shit on them, then once we add the costumes and once we add the props, we know it's going to go up and become something special. So that's pretty fucking cool. This is cool too. The lead animator of this game, again, this is all Totillo, so I'm just sharing because it's such a delightful group of anecdotes. The lead animator, and again, I'm a guy who loves this game. I'm not going to finish it. I have big problems with aspects of this game that push me away from it. But it's a delightful game. There's no doubt. And if you like platformers, you should play it. At least as they're traditionally defined platformers. That was my issue. But anyway, listen to this. The animator of this game, the lead animator, he said, I actually animated the little boy in The Last Guardian. He was the animator on that, and then he ended up animating the Astro Bot robot based on the boy that he had animated in The Last Guardian. Isn't that cool? That was so fucking cool, man. I thought that was the neatest fucking thing. And then they also talked about this because I was confused. Whenever you unlock people or robots, this guy, for example, is clearly Sully from Uncharted. But it doesn't say Sully. It doesn't tell you what game he's from. It just says dependable smuggler, tells the occasional white lie. And I'm like, was it that they couldn't get the rights to some of the characters in name, and so they just kind of came up with this convention? No. Here's what they said. They addressed that. They said, it's a little game we play with the player, a friendly textual nudge meant to trigger a memory or compel some quick online research. The team intentionally excluded the names of the games the Astrobots were from, instead using allusions and in-jokes. So that was totally intentional. We'll get to Sweet Tooth in a minute, because they talked about that. K-Nub says, I bet you were as disappointed as I was at the last VIP bot. I don't know what it was, K-Nubs, because I stopped playing it. All right. Oh, here's the concept art for the woman in Shadow of the Colossus who's like basically asleep the whole time. And they're like, well, what do we do? Because she never wakes up in the game. So they wake her up for a moment in Astro Bot, but then she goes back to sleep, or the curse takes over. I forget, or whatever. But it's really cool to see this little concept art that this guy drew. Now listen to this. One iconic PlayStation character Asobi did not make a bot for. Now this pissed me off because I had seen the concept art for this, and then I'm like, oh, it'll be DLC. Okay, so that's what I thought was going on. Hey, hang on. We'll put a pause here in the edit. All right, I'm going to tell you what happened to Sweet Tooth in just a second, but it pissed me off. But I'll be back in 2 seconds. I got to see what the dog wants. I think a package is here. Hang on. All right, sorry about that. Okay. No, I didn't leave. I had to let the Amazon guy in. All right. Where were we? Okay, so we're talking about why Sweet Tooth's not in the game. Okay, so we're back from the edit. Boop. Okay. So they basically said, well, why isn't Sweet Tooth in the game was the question. One iconic character that PlayStation Team Asobi didn't make was Sweet Tooth. The most famous face from the Destruction Derby series, Twisted Metal. Here's what they said. This pissed me off. While Team Asobi did include some edgier characters, such as God of War's Kratos, who murdered his family, the studios mostly chose protagonists who could be described as heroes. For Sweet Tooth, the clown-themed killer, they got the advice from developers who worked on the series that he wouldn't fit. Now, there's only one person left that I can think of. You can let him out. Okay. Thanks, bud. There's only one person I can think of, and I'm not going to say their name, who's still at Sony that even tangentially worked on this series. And I never got along with this person. They never got along with me. They're still at Sony Santa Monica, and it's just the kind of thing they would do. To have this bullshit thought. They advised us, they didn't force us, and we agreed that it was better to leave this character out. Because if you're playing with your kids, we don't want you to have to explain what the character does. Really? Really? You can have Joel in there, and you can have fucking Solid Snake in there, and you can have Kratos in there. Come on. What a again, I'm not saying the person, whoever this developer was, was trying to be a dick, but he was always this kind of person. He was just, he's just a little political worm. I never got along with him. I don't know how much of this was political or not, but it wouldn't surprise me that he's like, I'm going to take the high ground. This is probably not a good thing to put in there. And shut up, you idiot. You don't have to go, what will we say to the kids? I don't know. He's a little clown. He's in a game. He drives an ice cream truck. That's all you have to fucking say. You're going to fucking say to the goddamn kid, well, why is this guy playing, who's this guy with the girl with the guitar? Oh, he murdered a bunch of people. He's kind of an asshole at times. He could have saved the human race, but shut up, idiots. Pisses me off. All right. There's no bot in Astro Bot either for Cloud. We talked about that, but they talked about it in the articles. It's pretty interesting. They did say this though. If we relied too much on the PlayStation heritage, because they wanted to have some of their own just base Astro Bots, Astro doesn't get a chance to potentially spread his own wings. I think the weakest part, honestly, of Astro Bot is Astro Bot. Astro Bot without the franchise characters, right? I mean, it seems like that's a character design that I think should have spent more time in the oven. I really, really, really do. I just don't think he's fine. There's nothing in the world wrong with Astro Bot as a character design, but he seems to be missing something. And I get he's different than the generic one, so he pops a little bit, but maybe it's just me, but I don't think this guy is ready for prime time. I think if they bring him back, and they probably will, they need to, he's not there. They need like a really great designer on this. He feels very generic. Like he feels like a B tier mascot. Not in terms of the game, not in terms of the world and the execution, but just in terms of his visual design. It's kind of like, what it feels like? Here's what it feels like. It feels like, that movie studio, very successful, that make like the Minions movies and all that shit. But they're no Pixar. But they feel like a second-rate Pixar, but they still do good stuff. That's what the design, not the game, but the design of Astro Bot feels like. Like it just wasn't, or like DreamWorks, Carlos. Yeah, DreamWorks, but I'm thinking of like, what do they call it? Illumination or Illusion or Blue Sky, whatever. They did like Minions and robots and the Snoopy Peanuts movie, all that shit. All right. Let us continue down the road, my friends. Okay. I want to show you this, if I may. You may not. Alan Wake 2 with ray tracing will run at 30 frames per second on PlayStation 5 Pro. I'm just saying, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's because I've been around the block. A lot of you guys have been around the block too. I'm not saying this is coming as a surprise for a lot of you guys, but it's just like maybe you cross a point where you have enough generations and now sort of mid-generation refreshes where you go, that feeling that you're feeling that the company, and this doesn't have to be Sony, this could be Xbox, it could be Apple, it could be Nvidia. And again, I love GeForce because I love the pretty graphics when I can get them. I'm not some anti-graphics guy. I don't think they're as important as most people, but I know they're important to sell. But it's just like, people are saving up $700 and it's like, oh yeah, this game though, you can't run it with ray tracing on unless you're running it at 30 frames. I'm just like, it is never ending, fellas. And it's almost just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm bringing it up for any reason other than to suggest that once you get off this particular freeway of chasing the tech instead of the games, it's really delightful. And I'm not saying your experience chasing the tech is not delightful. You may fucking love it. But boy, when I see stuff like this after like less than 2 weeks after seeing the reveal of the PS Pro, and everyone who is into it are like, it's amazing, it's amazing. I'll be playing. Not that I would play Alan Wake 2 again because I didn't love it, but I could play it at 60. It's hard to play it at 60 with ray tracing, but you know, Nvidia's coming out with new cards every 6 months. So, you know, I'm just saying, I don't know how surprised you guys are at this, but it's not going to be giving you all you want. Maybe it's time to stop chasing this particular dragon. Start chasing the gameplay dragon, boys. What do you think? What do you think? And think about this. Think about this. First, it's 2 questions. As you start to see some of these limitations creep in, does it make you less interested, assuming you were interested at all in the PS5 Pro? You may not have been. Some of you guys don't care about it, but some of you guys are excited. I get it. You know, does it change your view, or is it like, no, we knew that was coming. We know it can't run everything. I'm just curious. The other thing is, boy, I'll tell you. Boy, I'll fucking tell you. Someone's got to come up with a way to grow the video game audience like traditional games. And I don't know how possible it is. Someone's got to come up with a way, because the audience, you know, we should just call it the Layden conundrum, because he's the one who gave voice to it better than most people, which is the number of people who play these kinds of games has not grown in decades. But the budgets are going up, right? And so at what point, like, I mean, you know, my ex-wife and my son's more of a gamer, but not only with like Fortnite and with his buddies and stuff. My ex-wife never plays games, but we'll jump on and play Wordle almost every night and all the New York Times games. But to show her a game like this, she couldn't be bothered. A lot of people couldn't be bothered. So I guess the question becomes, can this, I don't mean like, oh, I don't want to get into a big, like, is it sustainable? I don't care. It is not, whatever. Graphics sell. People love beautiful things. I get it. But I'm just wondering, like, is it a dead end, or is there a way to make a game like this, like an Alan Wake? Like, how do you get a 55-year-old soon-to-be grandma or a 35-year-old soccer mom or dad sitting down and playing this? Or is it like you can't? You just can't. And they don't want Bandersnatch, and I get it. They don't want Choose Your Own Adventure. If they're going to have that, might as well just watch a show. It's already written from top to bottom. But it is interesting that Sony, out of all of them, I mean, Xbox is still making hardware, which is goofy to me, but whatever. Nintendo came out, and Miyamoto came out and said, you know, they always say this, but it was nice to have words put to it. Here's what he said. He was talking about the opening of the museum, the Nintendo Museum in Japan. He says, I hope people will understand Nintendo by coming here and not get involved in what is sometimes called the game war. I think he means the console war, such as high specs and how to improve the performance of game consoles. Nintendo will continue to make products that are uniquely Nintendo using various tech available in the world today, and we will continue to create not only games but also entertainment content. I mean, Nintendo's Nintendo. I'm always stunned that no one has come around and said, hey, we could compete with them. We don't have to compete with them technologically. Let's do what they do. Let's put the focus on gameplay, and the tech is kind of a second thing. It's there to serve the game. So Nintendo's going to be fine. Microsoft eventually, if they're right that all this is going streaming, is going to be fine. Sony is still betting on this, and that's great. That's great if they're just a software company. But I'm not bashing Sony, fellas. I'm genuinely curious about it, because, I mean, don't you think it's kind of like they're racing towards, I don't want to do this because people think I'm doing console war stuff. I'm not. I'm genuinely intellectually curious about this. As somebody who games, and somebody who used to make games, like, if you're chasing this and you are not getting more and more people to show up for this, but the budgets are going up, is the goal, is the job to go, we have got to figure out a way to grow the audience for these kinds of experiences. And is the danger there that you can do that, but you're going to grow it by dumbing it down to the point that you lose your core? Or do you somehow make games that your mom can play on her phone that tie into this? So you're sitting there playing the core game and she's sitting on her phone doing a match 3 game that every time she matches the right thing, Alan Wake gets, more ammo or something. I mean, I'm not joking. I'm trying to figure out how do you make this into something that is, can really kind of become more manageable for people. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm not hating. I'm just curious. What do you think about Miyamoto, by the way? I don't know. Here's my question. Miyamoto, whenever you see Miyamoto, well, let's make him big here. Let's make him big on the screen. Come on, buddy. Whenever you see Gitsur Miyamoto, who's one of the greats, no doubt. Whenever you see the guy, he's always so happy, right? And he's always so joyful. Now, we know if you're over the age of 12, he isn't. No one is like that. He's playing the character of Miyamoto for the press, right? We know this. Do you like that as an adult? Do you like when people, don't have to be Miyamoto, it's just that reminded me of that when I saw this picture. Do you like that he has a press face, basically? Or would you prefer if people who were in front of cameras that were behind the scenes interviewers, not like the characters they make, but when they're interviewing them, if they were, I don't know, does this work for you anymore? Is this an antiquated way to handle the press? I mean, he's an older guy. He's like 75. I mean, he's not going to change, but does this work for this generation of people? That this kind of like, and it's not just him. I mean, Spielberg has a similar thing. There's lots of celebrities that have this, that they play this role for people. But I'm just wondering, do you like it? Or do you find it offensive? Or do you find like, oh, dude, just shut up? It's like, I think the same thing with Konami, Kojima. Kojima is I love Metal Gear is one of my favorite franchises. But my God, his public persona is, it's a little insufferable these days. I watched that documentary about him on Hulu. Good Lord. Enough. Right? I don't know. I don't know what I wish. I guess I wish people would just be open and honest, and it bothers me when they are putting on what is clearly an act. PK says he's most likely strict as hell behind the scenes. Oh, we know he is. We've had people in the press come out and say, oh, I worked with him. He's great. He's nice. He's wonderful. But he is I'm not saying he's an asshole in real life, but he's a normal human being, which means that this is a press creation. I much prefer the human side of developers, says Necro, the trials and tribulations. The PR versions are so easy to see through. Well, that's how I feel. And I guess what I'm wondering, Necro, is the idea of, can you be aware of the illusion and the horse shit, but still go, yeah, I know it's an act, but I like to pretend because it's a nice act to believe is real, right? It's nice to believe people are really like that. Like, do I really think any of these politicians, whatever side of the aisle you like to vote with and talk about, none of them are doing anything when they go in front of a camera other than giving you a character they've put together because they want to get their way. And we know that. But I don't know, maybe the internet, maybe social media has just made it so I can't handle it anymore. I can't handle it's like so full of shit, I'm not saying this guy's going to turn around. He's going to have freak-offs with P. Diddy and shit, although he might. I'm just saying that, Mutemo says it's a brand. He's the guy who made Mario. I know, but isn't there a point where you start to go, that's so not believable anymore that it is not interesting? Maybe not. I don't know. Z says, my wife loves to play old Nintendo and Sega. She's mainly a mobile player, but she does like Switch. I asked her why. She said the controls are simple and the games are fun. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. There's definitely no doubt that, what I would wonder is when Atari, back when I was a kid, which was literally one stick and a button, I don't know. I'll look that up. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about were the number of gamers back then. I guess the answer would be, I don't know if the number of gamers back then were more because the games were simpler, but the number of people who play simpler games today are huge if you count cell phone. But those aren't really the kind of games we're talking about, man. That's the question, right? If the game was fun and simple to control, could it be a game that looked like God of War Ragnarok, right? That's kind of the question. As it relates to Miyamoto, Necro says, I can certainly understand why others would enjoy the constant smiles and sunshine, but it's just not for me. Yeah, it feels bullshit. Feels bullshit. Okay. Okay, one moment, please. Without the gaming magazines nowadays, I have no idea who the current game directors are. In the Gamer Mag days, the game directors always got interviewed. Yeah, I mean, you can still do that online, but honestly, these days there's so many games and there's so many game directors. And then, like, I was watching something from Indiana Jones today, and there's like game directors and then there's creative directors. I mean, there's so many people now on these teams that it's hard to even, know who the press is putting out as a figurehead. But I agree, absolutely. Film Gamer says Death Stranding 2 TGS panel. Yeah, it's a 90-minute panel. Starts in 15 minutes. Anybody looking forward to it? I thought, Film Gamer, that the trailer for Metal Gear 2 looked awesome, but I'm not looking forward to it, not because I think it looks bad, but because I'm never going to make the time to play that game. It requires simply too much. Like the new game from the Persona guys from Atlas. What's it called? The demo just dropped, 5-hour demo. I'm not playing that. I played it for an hour. I liked it, but I don't have the time for a 100-hour video game anymore. I just don't. Youth Culture says Vita is moving towards influencers who are more authentic and rough around the edges in both presentation, but more importantly, honest about their takes. I would agree with that. I think that's a really good point. And maybe that's why, because I do watch so much of that stuff on my own and with my kids, that this kind of traditional way of presenting, like Miyamoto is, feels it feels very false to me. It doesn't ring true, basically. All right, one second. All right, so here's the deal, fellas. I think what I'm going to do, because I have some more news, but you know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for another show tomorrow or Monday. There's some God of War stuff in there. There's some Slitterhead stuff in there. And there's some Q&A in there. But I think we're good. When I finish, I'll do some Q&A, though. Let's talk to the chat. Let you guys run the last part of the show, okay? How about that? Would you finish Astro Bot if the final bot was Taylor Swift? No. I wouldn't. For me, what it is I recognized that it was a traditional platformer. And it wasn't an action-adventure platformer. And I don't know what the actual subgenres are called because I've never heard anyone articulate the distinction between a game like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which to me is more of an action-adventure with platforming, versus a more proper platformer. Astro Bot feels like a proper platformer. And in that, I have very little interest. I love the world, the theme, the production, the presentation, but pure platformers are absolutely not for me. Every now and then I'll find one that I love, but usually no. Like I loved the first, like the Crash games, but I never finished a Crash game except the fourth one, which I thought was better. And that was a pure platformer, but it was just so varied and interesting that I was willing to stick with it. So I don't know. I've tried to get into Death Stranding, says Rob. I love how it plays, but there's something about it that never sticks. It's just, I think it's just a big commitment, man. I don't want to spend the time with the commitment. I did, by the way, yes, Mutant Mo has been a member for 39 months. Let me tell you something. This guy is one of our grand old men of the Discord and of the community. I sure do appreciate Mutant Mo, all you do for us and all you share with us and your little gifts and your little dancing fat guy. I don't know who that is. Is that Wings of Redemption or some such shit? The point is, you spawn loving, porn consuming, weed smoking motherfucker. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for all of that, all the support and all the time you've helped build this community. I appreciate it. All right. Any other questions, or I'm out? Otherwise, I'll see you. I'll definitely see you Monday. I'll probably see you with some videos, maybe another live stream tomorrow, because I do have more news. But I'm trying to keep the core show to 90 minutes, because it leaves me with the energy to edit and put up different shows and stuff. And I do want to try to put more stuff on the channel. And again, if you're watching, by the way, well, first let me make something clear before we get to some Q&A. But if you're watching, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the God of War members, of course, I took the sounds out because they're too annoying. I love them, but they're too annoying. The God of War members that keep the channel chugging along, and these get updated once a month. So if you've just joined the God of War, I know we got a couple of new members. You'll see that in October. But we got Big Bad Eddie T, Zack Procrastinates, Swapfire, Lutron, and Roxheart Vendetta. Rotten Tanuki is no longer a God of War. He's been one of our longest members. He's still here, big part of our community. It's an expensive ask. And I appreciate Rotten, and I will continue to appreciate Rotten. I love he's still with us. Love his day one patch kids. I'm waiting for a hat, Tanuki. I want the man to make some fucking hats, because I tried to have one made because I wanted to wear it on the show. But I always have such poor luck doing hats and shit. But yeah, I love the day one patch kids, and that's Tanuki stuff. So Bulbo says, can I have a fortune cookie? No. You wanted one for your grandma. And I'm like, she gotta subscribe. Did you update the membership tiers? Yeah, I'm on it. I'm working on it. What I'm trying to do, let's just talk. Let's fucking just talk. What I'm trying to do with that, is, in fact, I'm talking to Colin Moriarty, who's got the biggest video game Patreon on Patreon. I'm talking to him this week because I'm like, hey man, I don't know if I want to start moving a lot of this, because we are on Patreon because people have asked me. But the Patreon folks get the sort of shrift, whatever it's called, because the reason that exists mostly is people who don't want to pay Google, and or if you like the podcast version of the show. Because YouTube is just disturbingly broken when it comes to their whole podcast thing. Like if you have a members only show, like we were talking at the beginning of this show, like Brain on Games, which the first episode, by the way, is now up if you're interested in such malarkey. You can't listen to it on YouTube with the screen off, even if you're a member. Why? It beats the fuck out of me. It's an easy thing to fix, but my understanding is they don't want to fix it. And at first I thought, because they want to charge me for it. Okay, cool, I'll pay for it. But they don't even offer it as something to pay for. So right now, like this stream will go up later today on Spotify. You don't have to be a member, but I'm trying to figure out when it comes to, right. That's the problem, right? Darth Nugget says, you could just move entirely to Patreon, but then the members only chat wouldn't work, which is impossible, which is absolutely impossible. Because that's a big part of the membership for some people. And so I don't know how I'm going to solve it, but I do want to absolutely, adjust the tiers very, very soon. Because I'm doing more members only content, right? I've got Sunday sermon that I'm starting to do once or twice a month. I'm doing Brain on Games. I'm doing, I'm starting to put more of the stuff that's more about game design, game theory, more serious conversations behind that paywall, at least for a limited time, if not permanently, because the people who are really into that tend to be more hardcore, and keeping this show a little bit more general pop about just games in general, but we'll see. Vitaphone says they don't want to help train their audience. There are options outside from YouTube videos. No, I get why, but what I don't get is why they don't say, because they have YouTube Music, right? And that's where their podcasts will play, but their member podcasts still won't play in YouTube Music. So you should be seeing the streams on Spotify, though. The streams are free right now on Spotify. If you open up Spotify and type Gavin and Games, you should see a member stream if you're a member on Patreon, but you should also see the free ones. Like the last 2 episodes of this that were not member shows from last week should be up there. If not, please hit me up in the Discord or somewhere, Twitter, and let me know. But yeah, so that's it's an ongoing thing, and it's rough because live is such a big part of this, and I don't really know anyone at Patreon that does live like we do, and in that I'm not sure how to balance it, but we'll figure it out. We'll get there. But that's my answer. Okay. I used to listen to the show on YouTube Music before I went premium. I'd stream live shows off the app. Right. If you live on YouTube and don't pay for YouTube Premium, what are you even doing? Yeah, but even then, like, I played, I pay for YouTube Premium, right? But even then, if you pay for YouTube Premium, you still can't watch members-only videos if you also pay a channel for memberships with the screen off. So the minute you turn your screen off or it goes off automatically, it shuts down. So you can't listen to them. It's absolutely ridiculous what they do. I don't get it. Yeah, Jeopardy. I'm telling you, Darth Nugget. Let me tell you something. The newest episode on Spotify is from June. What? Let me see. Hang on. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good information. Thank you for sharing it because that's not what it should be. Did you guys did any of you members watch Brain on Games? Did you like it? Should I keep doing it? It takes a lot to do it, but I will do it if people dig it. But I don't want to keep doing it if not. So I'm looking at it right now. Gabbin and Games 925, Ubisoft tries to right the ship. There's the members only Brain on Games. Here's one from September 23rd. But you're saying you're not seeing that. That's troubling. I'll have to look into that. I appreciate it. Yeah, let me know, K-Nebs. I like the magazine show more, but it's mostly visual, so it's hard to compare it to the Brain. Okay. Yeah, well, let me know. Like I said, I want to start bringing more membership value with different shows to you guys, but I'm not entirely sure which ones you're digging and which ones you're not. So we'll let them run for a little bit more and see. Yeah, the Jeopardy thing was interesting to me because, you know, I saw some people in the comments. He's talking about the Last Stand Media live show. I saw some people in the comments say, why... This was fine, but why didn't you guys just do a podcast? Because we're all podcast listeners. And I agree. I you know, I thought it was fine, you know, but I would have much preferred as an audience member to go watch a live podcast recording of a podcast that I'm into, that I'm a member of, right? 100%. I'm with you. And, you know, do some special things for the live audience, but the Jeopardy stuff or whatever, it's just, you know, it's only as entertaining as the questions and the answers, and you can't script that. I mean, you could, but then it would be a lie, but that's probably okay. Probably better than, you know, I mean, hell, those game shows are edited. If you ever watch game shows anymore, they're edited like crazy. And I agree, the Jeopardy, some of the questions were really good, and some of the questions were like, again, I can't judge them because I don't watch a lot of content on that channel because I'm busy and I contribute over there, right? But it's not like I listen to, like it was like, oh, what are Chris Raygun's, some of the things he says? Like, what are his top 10 catchphrases? And I'm like, I don't know. Now, the audience may have liked playing that, which is, I get that they're the main reason we're there, but I didn't understand half those questions, or like, what things does Micah not like, or like that are weird? I'm like, I don't know. But it was a blast though. I mean, I had a great time, but I agree with some of the comments that it would be fun if we could all just sit and do a live show, and then Q&A from the audience as part of the live show. I think would be cool at some point. So, all right. Well, there you go, fellas. That is Gabbin' Games for Saturday, the 26th. You know, there you go. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. I'll try to look into the Spotify thing. Necro, I appreciate the update and figure out what's going on. In the meantime, that's been the show. I will see you guys soon. Golf Franchise says, I like how long-form interview shows like the ones you did with Days Gone and Siphon Filter. I like those too, but the hard part is, you know, you got to find the people that are interested in talking and that are interesting to talk. So, you know, that's not always easy, and especially with somebody as controversial as I. Be well, be safe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everybody. Well, that song's ending. Let's put on another song for you guys.